Hey, Andy Hanks here with RockyTrax, and this video I'm doing something new. I am introducing self-guided rides up here on Glade Park, Colorado. This is something new starting in 2020 since most of my tours have had to be canceled due to COVID and a few other things going on this year. But I still wanted to be able to offer folks an opportunity to go explore, see some of the best of western Colorado, and do it in a way that they can know where they're going, what kind of terrain to expect, and about how long it's going to take. So these self-guided rides I'm putting together for folks who, if they want to come stay with us in our campers here on our property, or rent bikes from us and go do day trips, or maybe even some multi-day trips. They'll have some information available so they can go on these rides and know where they're going and how long it's going to take and so forth. So this is the first of, I hope, several self-guided rides. This one's called The Best of Glade Park, and it's a sampling of the area and some of the features in each of these areas that I think just stand out and make this place special. And the video is to supplement these guided rides, which I'll be doing tracks or creating routes and sharing those GPS tracks with folks who want to stay with us or rent bikes from us. So the first part of this, after leaving our home on Glade Park, is going down to the Colorado National Monument. This is a beautiful place, lots of red rock canyons. Most of those canyons there are 300 and 400 feet deep, and the road just kind of goes right along the edge of them. It's some pretty scenery. The road is nice and twisty, so it's a lot of fun to do on a dual sport. Here's one of the canyons where I stopped and took some time to get a little more video as I'm passing through the monument. This is Diego, one of my rental bikes, 2016 DRZ 400, nicely outfitted for off-road travel and or multi-day trips if someone wanted to rent Diego and make a few days of it. So we're still on the Colorado National Monument here, and you can see the pretty red sandstone bluffs, and we'll soon be leaving the monument and heading back onto Glade Park, where we're going to continue our day. The overall route for the Best of Glade Park, there's another one of the canyon overlooks. The overall route is about 90 miles, and depending on how fast you're traveling and how many stops you make, it will take probably between 4.5 to 6 hours, thereabouts. So we're leaving the monument, and there's way more to the monument. If you just wanted to spend a couple hours riding the monument, there's lots to see. But again, this is kind of a sampling of the best of what Glade Park has to offer. So we're heading back up to Glade Park. We're going to be going through some ranch land, some open country, and making our way to some more rugged canyons and back roads, and eventually up into the high country. Here we're going through some ranch land. You do have to be aware of the private property signs. Many of these roads are public roads and they go through the private property, and you just have to be aware and not take any side trips or go through closed gates that have private property signs on them. I like this stretch here because it's just a combination of open ranch country with the red rock bluffs and just wide open back country where you hardly see another person. So this route has a couple of alternate side routes that offer more challenge. Overall, the route is designed for entry-level riders or novice riders on their larger adventure bikes. But I have a couple of side routes for folks who want to challenge themselves and do something a little more technical. And this is one of them. This is in Tom's Canyon. This is a steep kind of winding route that climbs up on top of a bluff. And as you can see, it's sloped off to the left. Every time it rains, the road changes condition. Sometimes there's deep ruts, sometimes it sloughs off to the left, downhill. And then here it gets kind of twisty and rocky and steep. And definitely not something I would recommend for a beginner or someone on their large adventure bike. Although I have done this very route on a KTM 1190 Adventure R. I did it by myself, didn't have any problems, but afterwards I realized, if I would have dropped that bike rubber side up, I probably would have been walking out, because there were some places there that had I dropped the bike, I don't know if I would have gotten it upright by myself, or at least it would have taken me a lot of time and effort. So if you're by yourself, I wouldn't do this on a big bike, or if you're a beginner. Maybe if you had a group of guys with you to help, then try it. But this route here is easily avoidable if you don't want to do this. You just stay on the main road, follow the tracks that I create for the main route, and don't do this section. But if you're on a dual sport and you have some, reasonable off-road experience, this just makes for a fun, challenging part of the trip, and kind of keeps variety in the ride, so it doesn't get too monotonous. This is another one of the rocky sections on this alternate route. Unfortunately, my GoPro battery died, so I'm having to just do this with my handheld camera, and I'm going to go set up my tripod and just get a little video of some of the more technical sections. And that's the point of these videos. It's not to film the entire thing so you can see everything. It's mostly just to give you a little flavoring of here's what you'll see, here's what you could expect, and then I try to show some of the more challenging sections of the trail so you can decide for yourself if that's something you want to do. So we're at the end of the alternate route. It's kind of an out and back, and this is Fish Park, and that's looking into Utah right now. And just some big wide open country, and a fun out and back to go see that. Now I'm heading back to the main route. Again, there's another little rocky section that kind of represents a little bit of what this back road section looks like. So when I got back to the main route, I was running short on time. My GoPro battery was dead, and so I decided to head home. I decided I would pick up this route the next day with a fresh GoPro battery and finish the route. And I'm glad I did, because my daughter Casey was able to go with me on that second day. And it's always fun to have someone to ride with, and it certainly makes for better video viewing when there's somebody else in the frame besides just the front of my bike fender. So Casey and I went right back to the place where I had stopped making my tracks the day before and picked up where I left off. And so now we're heading through, this is actually BLM land, and we're going to be heading up onto those taller foothills you see there in the background. We're probably at 7,000 feet, 7,400 feet, somewhere in there. And by the time we end up on top, we'll be close to 9,000 feet. Casey is riding a 1989 Honda XR 250R. We bought that bike used in original condition, and it was a great bike for her to learn to ride on when she was ready for a bigger bike, and just a good, spare bike to have for any of the other kids or friends that come over. But that bike needed some serious work, and I had offered, to buy a new bike for Casey several times, but she loved that bike. She loved the old school bike. She loved the kickstart. She named it Hank, and did not want a different bike. So we ended up restoring that bike, having the engine rebuilt, and did a total frame off restoration, and turned it kind of into a scrambler. So it's still got the same dirt bike characteristics, dirt bike suspension, but it's kind of got the old school scrambler look. And I think there's a picture of it here in a little bit. So we're now on top, and we're getting ready to enter National Forest. And we'll be in the high country now for the next good bit of the ride. And this is all part of the main route. As you can see, the roads are pretty easy. We're getting ready to take another alternate route. In fact, I missed the turn. It's right there on my right, so I've got to turn around and go back. But if you wanted to stay on the easy route, you'd just keep going straight. But we're going to do this alternate route because it's a little more challenging. So again, something a little more fun and dynamic for folks that want to get off the beaten path. Probably wouldn't recommend it for a brand new beginner, and again, probably not ideal for somebody that's fairly new and maybe riding a big adventure bike. You could do this on an adventure bike. I've ridden my 1190 on this section, but there are a few places where it could get pretty challenging. So there's a ATV trail we're going to take up here called Ridge Trail, and the first little section of that is steep, rocky, and loose, and some deep sand in places. So definitely not for a beginner. But once you're off that and on top, it's actually pretty easy. And it does exactly what the trail says. It just follows this ridge line across the top of what's called Pinyon Mesa. And you can see off into Utah. You can see Canyonlands down below in Colorado, and lots of big range country. It's a fun ride. So here's the ATV trail. So I have two rental bikes right now. One is this DRZ 400, and the other one is a Beta 390 RRS. So they're both ideal for off-road travel, slower, rougher, more technical type of travel, like this right here. This is pretty steep, loose, rocky, deep sand right here. So these two bikes that I rent are perfect for this kind of riding. They're both also street legal and can be used on the highway. This one certainly would be a little more comfortable for longer trips on the highway. The Beta is definitely a dirt bike with a license plate, so you can ride it on the highway in short sections, but I wouldn't try and recommend making a long trip of pavement travel on that one. This is really pretty in here. I really like this ride. My kids and I have ridden this many times, and my kids grew up learning how to ride in this country and starting out on little Honda 70s and I think a Honda 80 and Honda 100 and a 150, and now to get to ride this trail with my kids now that they're older and riding bigger bikes and doing really well. Casey here can go just about any place I would want to go, and it's a lot of fun to get to experience that with your kids.
There's old Hank, getting it done old school. Old DRZ. Casey Ray kicking it on the XR. There's the LaSalle Mountains in Utah.
So overall, this route, the Best of Glade Park, I would consider an easy route, with the exception of these two little alternate side routes that you could take. I do plan to build some others that are probably mostly challenging for dual sport use, meaning they're going to be geared for intermediate to slightly advanced riding skill levels. And they'll definitely be more challenging and more focused on the technical aspect of the ride versus the easy and scenic aspect of the ride. Even the challenging ones are going to have great scenery, but you'll just have to enjoy that scenery when you're parked somewhere, not while you're trying to ride, because you'll be focusing on keeping it on the trail. So I will build some rides that do that and are more challenging, and hopefully have a variety of rides where people can pick and choose what kind of skill level they're interested in, what kind of riding they want to do, what kind of scenery they want to see, what kind of country they want to go explore, and then they'll be able to pick from these self-guided rides based on their interests. And of course, the goal here is to encourage folks to come stay with us and use our place as a base camp to ride from. And if they don't have their own bikes, to rent from us and then go explore on a couple of great dual sport bikes and get to see why we love Western Colorado so much. And probably I'll expand some of these routes into eastern Utah. We're right on the border of Utah, so it would be real easy to create some routes that crisscross between western Colorado and eastern Utah. Okay, so we're off the Ridge Trail, and we're going to start climbing back down off the mountain and head home. There's a nice lake there off to the right called Enoch Lake. That would be a fun place to stop and have a picnic or take a break. And from here you're about 30 minutes back to our home or the Glade Park store. Actually, the Glade Park store is where I started this track as far as keeping track of the actual route. It starts and stops at the Glade Park store, which is also a fun place. It's an old school general store built in the early 1900s, still very much original, and it's the only store on Glade Park, so it's kind of the gathering place if you want, to have a soda pop or some ice cream or get some basics for the groceries. So this route there on the left, had you stayed on the main road, that's where you would have come in at, instead of doing that alternate route over Ridge Trail. So you end up at the same place, heading back, whether you choose to do the alternate routes or not.
Well, that was the end of our trek. We'll get home and tally up the miles and the time and get this video out. We're here at the Glade Park store. We're gonna celebrate with some ice cream and call it a day. Thanks for joining.
Guys, thanks for watching. If you want more information on our routes, our camper rentals, lodging, or bike rentals, go to RockyTrax.com. That's RockyTrax.com. Thanks again for watching.